Hey, this is Ralph, and in this video I want to go over some adjustments to our nav menu with peekaboo text for situations when you have the menu with a lot of adjacent text. Okay, so often comes up that, when you're doing a little experiment, say, okay, yeah, that works out pretty well, but what happens when on a more realistic web page where that menu is going to be around a bunch of other content? So made a few little modifications to this menu so that when the user hovers over it, notice the body of the text kind of fades out a bit, and we want to make sure that the span, the extra text, the peekaboo text, covers up that adjacent text. So let's go ahead and take care of that. Now the HTML is actually going to be the same for the menu part. By the way, this video link is in the description, so go ahead and check that out. You can view the source code. So I simply just did a copy-paste of nav1, made it into nav2, but then I also added a div with a couple of paragraphs in there, so we've got that to contend with. I'm going to head over to the CSS, and all the new CSS is really up here. I just stuck it up at the top. I'm going to go ahead and delete that, put it back to an original state, and another thing that I added, down here, this little background color. Let's get rid of that. So if I save that, head over to the browser and refresh, if you just focus on the menu, you're going to get the exact same kind of menu that we had in that prior video. Okay, but now I've got this text over here. So what I want to do is I'm going to head up to my nav2 styling, and I'll just put these right at the top. And I'm going to take my nav2 nav. And you might be wondering, what's all that about? Well, since I'm going to be using I'm going to be putting multiple navigation menus on this one page, I'm giving each little section or each little article its own unique ID, so that way I can make sure that I style each one independently. And then on my CSS file, I can refer to nav2, nav1, and nav3, 4, and 5. Okay, so on the CSS file, I'm going to take that, there we go, nav2, and I'm going to set its width to be about 250 pixels, which is a little bit wider than my nav menu itself. My nav menu is about 200 pixels. The little span that sticks out is about another 30 or 40 pixels, so that'll take care of that. And I also want to float this to the left. I'm just going to do those two changes, and let's see how things are looking. So when I refresh, I can see that my text is showing up there. So actually pretty happy with that. However, I don't like that it wraps underneath the nav menu. So I'm going to go ahead and say nav2 div. I'll put a margin left on that of about 260 pixels. And that will make sure that it clears that distance. So actually things are going pretty well. Now I'm going to go ahead and put a background color on the span so that we can make sure we have a solid color so we can kind of focus on a particular problem. So I'll go down to my spans, I'll do a background color, do a very light gray, so you can kind of see those, and now it's going to become obvious that my main paragraph text is on top of the span. Well, I had to do a z-index of -1 on the span to make sure that it was behind the anchor. Well, now I need to make sure that the div, the paragraphs, are behind that span. So, since my span is using a z-index of -1, I'm going to go to my div, position relative, z-index -2. So when you use z-index, it's on positioned items, so I just did a position relative, gave it a z-index of -2, which is obviously lower than the -1. Save that, browser refresh, and now I can be sure that that span is on top of the paragraph text. Now I want to do one more thing, and that's I want to fade out this paragraph text. So I'm going to go ahead and take the div in this, but I only want this to be on hover, so I'll say nav2 nav:hover adjacent to the div, and I'll just set the color of this to 999. That'll be a light gray, and I'm also going to do a transition. Let's see, I could change the color, or I could do all. Either one would give me the same impact. Color, I'll do 400 milliseconds, ease in, ease out. Save that, browser refresh, and you'll notice it as soon as I get over the nav. The nav is an invisible box surrounding these three list items, 250 pixels wide. So when I hover over that, text will fade out, and then of course my list items will pop out their little span extra text. So it's not so bad. I would still start off, make your basic navigation menu, and then incorporate it into your web page with surrounding content. You may have to adjust some positionings. You may have to adjust some Z indexes on things to make sure that the nav menu goes over any content on a hover effect.